I'm here to talk to you about what RomComs didn't teach me about instant management. You're probably being like, what did you expect they'll teach you anyway? And hopefully by the end of this, we will have a good discussion about that. And I'm always happy to talk about RomComs, so I'll be here all day ready to talk about it. To start with instant management, I define instant management as the process of effectively responding to outages in your system without further disrupting the other people using it, right? I wanted to just have that base so we can understand each other and kind of compare that to why I talk about RomComs. I think of RomComs as being the opposite of instant management in a lot of ways. It's a very relaxing process for me to watch them. I don't like thinking at the end of some days, especially after a hard day at work. And I love the formulaic aspect of RomComs, right? I go in, I know exactly what's going to happen. I love guessing why they're going to break up, because they always do. A lot of this is storytelling, but they meet, they fall in love, they inevitably break up because they didn't talk to each other, and then they get back together. There are also so many tropes in RomComs. Love all of them. Running through airports is one of my favorite tropes. Generally, they're just always running to meet each other because they have miscommunicated, then they realize, and they're like, we should go talk to each other, and sometimes they're flying. And you might be like, they don't do that anymore. But in 2018, Crazy Rich Asians, he proposed on a plane. So he had to buy a ticket. I mean, crazy rich, so they got there. But they still do this. You might think that they can't do it anymore because of like all the security things, but they still make that happen. There are lots of other tropes and great lines. My favorite one, rom-com, is Pretty Woman. One of the best lines from that movie is she goes shopping, someone doesn't let her shop there, and she comes back, lots of bags, and she's like, you made a big mistake, big, huge. And anyone who's watched that movie knows about that line. So instant management does feel like the opposite of that, and you might be like, we mostly do instant management with relation to tech and not so much with people. But actually, a lot of the tools that we use in instant management come from people. So the instant command system actually comes from firefighting, where we have an instant commander and other people who report to them, and information flows one way. We actually get this from firefighting. After some really bad fires in California, they came up with this system, and we still use it today in our instant management. So I showed you the graph of instant management earlier, and I want to compare it to the graph of RomComs here, where they do have something starts, and then they have some tension, and then they have the crisis, which is usually miscommunication, and then they figure it out. So where RomComs didn't teach me and where they get it wrong, I'm going to use a sample, which is 27 Dresses by Katherine Heigl, who was the queen of 2000 RomComs. Okay, she was in so many of them. What happens in this one is she meets a guy. He wants to talk about how she's been a bridesmaid 27 times and hasn't been married. So he writes an article about her but doesn't tell her, and you know that from the beginning. And they fall in love as he's writing this article, and then they inevitably break up because he doesn't tell her that he's a writer. So you're like, if no one takes responsibility because they just miscommunicated with each other. And you can tell from the beginning that it kind of will build up to this problem, like you know what's going to happen. You're like watching this train wreck happen. Train wreck is another great rom-com. But you're watching this train wreck happen, and as it kind of goes, and there's minimal communication, and at the end you just see them figure it out and then like get married, and you're like, no, give me when you'll talk about how you won't do this again. Maybe they can't show therapy on TV, but I would like to know that they'll make that work. But in comparison, instant management does a lot of things really well. And while I watch these movies, I can recognize that as someone who used to be an SRE and dealing with instants all the time. The main points is that we have instant command, right? We have instant commanders. They're the people who take responsibility. We know what the chain of command is going to be. We know who to page when something goes wrong. And then we have instant severities, and they kind of break up this problem of things kind of building up. So once we know an instant is happening, we just declare it, and it kind of will build up, but at least we can pull in more people, and it's easy to go. Also, for communication, we have things like IRC, Slack, Google Chat, carrier pigeons, whatever you choose to use. And we have postmortems, post-instant reports to make it work. So yeah, here's comparing them. Here are some of my favorite rom-coms. Happy to chat about any of these. Deadpool is a rom-com. If you want to talk about that with me later, happy to do so. There are so many great ones there. But actually, if you don't like rom-coms and you want some really bad books to talk about instead, here are some really awful books. You can judge them by their cover. Kissing the Coronavirus is the worst one on here. I have not read it. I keep wanting to. It's about the coronavirus coming to life and marrying someone who's trying to destroy it. I don't know why. But yeah, my name is Ajuna. I love talking about all this stuff. I'll now talk to you later. I hope you enjoyed this process.